Hello and welcome to Back at Camp, Mojave County's only outdoor television show. I'm your host, Don Martin, and on today's show we're going to talk about a subject that'll be of great interest to all you mule deer hunters. We're going to talk about the Arizona Strip, which is located north of the Colorado River in northwest Mojave County. We got a great show for you, lots of good pictures, so don't go away. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Welcome back to Back at Camp. I'm your host, Don Martin. With me today is one of my regular kind of co-hosts, Jay Chan. Jay, welcome.
Thank you, Don.
Jay, today we're going to talk about the Arizona Strip. It's a place that I think holds a lot of significance to both you and I. We've been there a lot in the past, and the Arizona Strip is truly an unusual place. I think it's like going back 100 years in American history. I mean, it's pretty isolated up there.
Absolutely. I mean, the first time you go into the country, it is just amazing. In fact, it's desolate, and it just gives you a look back about like what did Arizona look like 100 or 200 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, the Arizona Strip, you know, I hear a lot of people call different areas the Strip. I hear 12B is part of the Strip, 13A. These are the game management units, but primarily when you and I talk about the Strip, we're talking about Unit 13B, which is right there in that northwest corner of Arizona. It's you know, Utah's on the north of us. We got Nevada on the west of us, and we got Kanab Creek Canyon over there on the east side. You know, one of the neat things though about it being so rugged and so desolate is it gives the mule deer up there a great opportunity to grow to their maximum sizes. And I think this is why when people talk about the Arizona Strip and about huge mule deer bucks, they talk about 13B. I mean, that's the main thing up there. And Arizona Game and Fish manages the wildlife while the Bureau of Land Management manages the land. And, you know, a good friend of ours, Luke Thompson, you know, we've known Luke ever since I think he first was assigned to the Strip. And Luke has now worked his way up from being just the wildlife manager there. He's now the supervisor for all that country up there, which includes, I think, the Kaibab, 12B, and 13A. And I think you'll agree, Luke's done a great job managing that resource.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at other areas that we've been in, particularly the northern section of Arizona, that is the Arizona Strip has phenomenal mule deer. I mean, it has all the nutrients there. Basically, the entire environment is there to be able to sustain those large mule deer. Right,
and then you know they've got, you know, the minerals that are needed for maximum antler development, and you know, and boy, they produce some whoppers. I know, you know, a lot of local guys have got the opportunity to hunt up there. You and I, a couple years ago, we got to go up there with Tony Keller. And boy, did Tony get a whopper cactus buck. I don't think I've ever seen one bigger.
And neither have I. I was surprised when you look at it and you look at that buck, it is just amazing on what that buck looks like.
Yeah, he was 34 inches wide, and he's got drop stuff hanging all over the place. It was just phenomenal. And like you say, it's you know, it's not an area that's got a lot of mule deer, and I think people don't understand that they expect to see a 30-inch buck behind every tree, and as you and I well know, that's just not the case up there.
Oh yeah, I think, you know, one of the things that we've done, you know, when we've been up there, we've had to travel 60, 80 miles just to go from one area that has deer to another.
Right.
They're so spread out.
Right. So they're in isolated pockets, and you have to find them. But like I say, the neat thing about that, when you're glassing up there, you just never know when you're going to look up, and you are going to see a true buck of a lifetime. In addition to the mule deer, which I think 13B is the most famous for, there's turkeys up there. We know that recently Game and Fish had transplanted turkeys from Utah, and they're Rio Grande turkeys in the north end, and I think now they've started allowing limited hunting up there. I think there's 2 permits. And down south, there was resident flocks of Merriam's, and I know you and I have hunted turkeys up there before with mixed results.
Right. And I think a few years ago there was lots of turkeys, but recently we've seen a decline.
Yes.
And then I think the Game and Fish is taking appropriate action to get everything realigned again.
Right. I understand that they now are going to do a trapping project this winter, and they're going to actually transplant turkeys from the kaibab to supplement those birds that are in the southern end of the unit, which for whatever reason, we think it may have been a result of not only predation, but they had a huge freeze up there, and it might have took those turkeys and kind of took them out of the population. Another thing that's really developing up there of interest to sportsmen is feral pigs. I mean,
oh yes,
you know, in the past we had heard about them, but we really never saw them. And in the last 2 or 3 years, though, we found them.
Right, and we've seen through photos that more and more are showing up. In fact, on one of our earlier hunts, we had one of the hunters. He had seen one of them.
Right.
And that was pretty interesting. That was my first sighting.
Right. That was that big black boar that was in the snow, and he was walking through the snow, and we tried to get him to shoot it, and he wouldn't shoot it. You know, people need to understand these are feral exotics. They're not native up there. Game and Fish wants them out of there because they are destructive to the ecosystems. And you don't need a hunting license. You don't need a tag. And that's why it's so popular with those St. George boys, is they can come into Arizona. They don't need anything except a firearm, and they go up there and they take after those pigs.
And we know they definitely do that. We know that there's at least a half a dozen that has been taken.
Yeah, we've got a couple of friends of ours that have managed to locate them, and they've taken some pigs in the past. Now, another game animal that we seem to see up there a lot are mountain lions.
Yes.
And I know this year I was up there on an archery hunt with Mike Halsey, and the day before the hunt started, we heard the most horrendous sound of a fawn being killed, and it was being killed by a mountain lion. And subsequently, we were able to call that lion in, and Mike got a shot at that lion. Unfortunately, he didn't get it. And the next day, one of the bow hunters up there, he got a shot at another lion, and he missed it. And but there's been photos, trail cam photos of lions on a lot of those waters up north. So I think if somebody's going to go to the Strip, they ought to have a mountain lion tag in their pocket.
I think so. I think there's been a lot of your hunters that have had opportunities,
right,
of being able to take a lion. It's
Yeah.
just whether or not they had a tag or not.
Right. And I know here a couple of years back, I had an archer sitting on the water, and a lion came in, and he had a tag, and he shot it, and he waited 15 minutes, and then when he opened up the zipper on the blind to get out, he looked out, and there was 3 more lions walking up the trail, so he zipped the zipper down and sat and waited. He said that was a kind of an interesting experience. He only had one tag, and there's 4 lions there. So, you know, like I say, if people go to the Strip, they need to take a lion tag with them. Now, some other big game animals, and I know you've seen these in the past up there, are pronghorn antelope. And Game and Fish issues about 15 tags annually for hunts up there. And I know a couple times when we've been glassing for deer, you found some pretty good antelope up there.
Yeah, and it does look like they're, you know, in the central part of the unit, they're starting to get a larger and larger population of antelope.
Right.
In fact, I think we know one of the individuals that did have an opportunity to take one a few years ago.
Right. Well, and there was I think one of the top antelope ever taken in Arizona was taken up there. It was a transplant from 19B, but it was up there, and we hope that he got his genes spread before a hunter got him. Another big game animal that's up there is the bighorn sheep, and they're found basically. There's sheep in the south end of the unit, which I think is extremely tough to hunt, and then up in the Virgin River Gorge, we know we've seen, as we're traveling up and back, we've seen bighorn sheep in that gorge.
Absolutely, and boy, that is when you look at the terrain that those sheep live in, looks pretty rough.
Oh, it is vertical. It's straight up and straight down, and like I say, they have limited permits up there, but the sheep herd, according to Game and Fish, is doing good on the north end, not so hot on the south end. So if somebody's thinking about putting in for a sheep tag, they might want to key in on that north end and don't worry about 13B south, because they might be in for a real tough hunt. Now, one of the other things that we've seen up there, besides besides mountain lions, as far as predators concerned. There's coyotes, bobcats, foxes up there. And we had an interesting story a few years ago when we were up there on a strip deer hunt. Tell me about that when we had that coyote standing in front of the pickup.
Oh, yeah, we just happened to be having a discussion with one of the other hunters in there. And what was so amazing is that during our discussion, it was probably within 10 or 15 feet, comes walking by this coyote, doesn't even worry about us.
Nope.
Right?
Stood in front of the pickup. I looked out and there's this coyote standing there, and I go, hey, there's a coyote standing there, and we're talking to these other hunters.
So it just gives you an idea of, even the animals up there, very seldom do they see humans.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they weren't concerned with us.
Right. Well, and like I say, so, we know that coyotes are huge predators of mule deer fawn. So hunters, we'd encourage them, if they see a coyote up there, have a rifle with them and try to take it out. Now, we've been hunting on the Arizona Strip for many, many years, and boy, we've taken some great bucks up there. A couple that I can remember, Bruce Barletta. That was the first buck I ever rattled in. Great big buck up there. George Flournoy, a couple years ago, took a 11 by 11 up there. Jim Cooney, we had Jim Cooney up there, and we got pictures of his buck alive, and then after he took it. And there's also archery opportunities. There's about 25 tags a year up there, and we've had some success with that. Mike Halsey killed a great big buck up there on the first year. Bill Vanderwise killed a great big buck up there. So speaking of deer tags, you and I both drawn a strip deer tag. You filled yours, I didn't fill mine. I saw one buck, and you didn't get to see it, that was a giant, and that was the only buck that was of interest to me. But hopefully someday we're going to get to go back with a tag in our pocket.
I hope so.
Well, look, folks, we're going to take a break right here. We're going to talk about our hunter that we had this year up there, Chad Jones. So don't go away. We'll be right back. We're going to show you some really neat photos of some really big deer. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Welcome back to Back at Camp. I'm your host, Don Martin. With me today is Jay Chan. Jay and I have hunted on the Strip for many, many years, and this year we had the opportunity to hunt with Chad Jones, and just a heck of a nice guy, young guy out of Phoenix. And we found out that Chad had got really lucky this year in drawing that tag because he didn't have a heck of a lot of bonus points.
Yeah. There's a lot of other individuals that wish that they were as lucky as he was.
Yeah, I guess about 4 or 5 years ago, he drew a 13A tag and got a nice buck on that hunt. And so he applied for 13B, and darn if he didn't get like tag 31 out of 65 that were up there for 2012. And we got a call from him, set up a hunt, and met him up there, and we had a great time up there. Like you say, some people are just lucky. Then you got people like me. I got 14 bonus points for deer, and Chad drew it with 4. So, I think, probably a lot of people don't understand when we talk about bonus points. A bonus point is given for an unsuccessful application. In other words, I've applied for years and years, didn't get drawn, so the Game and Fish gave me a bonus point to theoretically help me draw in the future. Now, right now, I've got 14. That includes my hunter education point and my loyalty point, which you get after being in the system for 5 years. So, I've got a ton of points. I was looking, and there's only about 50 people in front of me, Arizona residents, that have more points than me. So hopefully, before I get too old, I'll get one more chance to go to that Strip.
There you go.
I mean, we get to go every year, and that's the good thing. But it would be nice to have one more tag up there. So, but oh well, it is what it is there. Now this year, after we got Chad booked, I got done on the Kaibab pretty early on the early hunt, so I got to go up there 10 days early and spend a lot of time looking around, scouting, and I found some big 3x3 bucks up there, and got some pictures of them, and just big, giant 3 points. They're not going to score worth a darn, but they're big, wide, 30 to 32 inches wide, and hunters can expect to see that kind of stuff up there.
Oh yeah, and I think we've seen that in the past. But of course, as always, hey, the trophy to the hunter is in the eyes of the beholder, right?
Right on, yeah. Yeah, and so as I got some pictures and I looked at bucks, and we had our friends of ours, Colby Adams and Dan Driggs from St. George. They had been up there looking around, and they had videotaped a 5x4 buck that I know was over 30 inches wide. And that was the buck that on the opening day we were going to kind of key on and see if we could find him and let Chad take a look at him. Chad wanted a real nice buck, like everybody does. I mean, that's why you go there. You don't go there and shoot fork horns.
That's right.
So we got up there, we're all ready to go, and what happens? Mother Nature just opened up the heavens. We got rain, snow, sleet, hail, and of course, like when it gets wet up there, it gets muddy. And boy, oh boy, we were slipping and sliding and trying to get out of there. But like I say, most people when they think about the Strip, they say, "Well, isn't that desert?" Well, it's kind of like around here. And does it ever snow in Kingman? Yep.
Absolutely.
And it snows on the Strip. And I know on our hunt up there that one year, we got up there on opening day and there was a foot of snow up there and we couldn't find a deer. So, they had all moved down off the mountain. So it can happen. So after we'd been up there for a while, we decided that, we'd seen a lot of bucks. And we saw some bucks that were approaching 30 inches. I think we saw another 3-point up on there that was probably 29 inches, a good solid buck. And we saw some little smaller bucks. So we decided we were going to go down south where I had found some pretty good bucks in my preseason work. And, once we got down there, it was a walk-in area. It was an area we'd found that you got to walk into. It's over 2.5 miles to walk in. And so I started going in and out. And then when you and Chad got up there, we went down there. Only problem was we didn't take our trailer. We didn't break camp. And boy, was that an experience, spending 4 days down in the south end with no comfort of a fifth wheel.
Absolutely. And little food, only thinking, we're only going to be down here for a couple of days. It's not an issue. We'll be right back out.
Sure. And so here we got the ATV trailer. And like I said, we brought a little bit of food, and we just thought we'd go down there and look at it. And if there was a big buck there, because I had found some sign that there was some big deer in there. And so we just thought, well, if they're there, we'll get them and we'll go back. Well, didn't quite work that way. And we spent a few nights sleeping on the trailer while Chad slept on a cot, and it was cold, and cold.
It was so cold that I think I was using 2 sleeping bags.
Yeah, we were using sleeping bags to cover ourselves up. And then the first day, I think when we walked in there, I tried to get you and Chad lined out, and I was going to check one spot and have you guys check a spot. And we kind of got turned around, and lo and behold, there the deer were there. I probably saw 25 deer on this flat that morning. I saw a 34-inch 4x4 chasing a doe, and I really wanted to get you guys in position, and it didn't happen. We didn't get it done, and I saw another group of about 15 does, had 2 big bucks with them. Then I saw a 30-inch 2x2 that was 175 yards from me, big regression buck. Looked like he had main beams as big as elk. And well, we didn't get her done that day, and we found out real quick that as soon as it starts getting light, those deer head right back into the trees.
Oh yeah, as you well know, those big bucks, they didn't live that long because they're standing out there when the sun comes up.
Right. When the sun came up, it was over. We were done. And we had over 2.5 miles walk in, so we're going in by flashlight, trying to get in position. And, then we, as soon as the sun comes up, we're done. I mean, it's over. And then we got another 2.6 miles back out that we had to get to the truck. So after that first day, we said, well, we didn't think we boogered them. We don't think they've seen us. And so we knew we were going to get some help. Colby and Dan from St. George came down to join us, and that was on Friday night. So that next day we kind of gave it we let it cool off, and then Saturday morning There we go. We traipsed back in there with flashlights.
Right.
So, but that turned out to be an interesting morning. You and I found a group of deer, and you looked at them and you said, man, we could see that buck had junk hanging down on the front, and we were kind of concerned he wasn't 30 inches, but we knew he was massive and he had this junk. So we got a hold of Chad and the boys and got him over there. Chad decided he was going to take that buck, but because it was so thick and those deer were moving away, again, right after daylight, he didn't get a shot. Right. So we slipped out of there, that day was another 5-mile hike back out, 2.5 miles back out. And so now we're down to the last day of Chad's hunt. And boy, I'll tell you what, it was like it's all on the table right now, and so, we got up the next morning super early, and we hot-footed it back in there. And I'd got sick in the process from sleeping out in that dust and cold, and I was coughing my head off, and I was concerned I was going to blow the whole thing. So we decided we were going to split up and put Colby and Dan in one spot, you and Chad in another, and I was going to go where we'd seen that buck the previous day, thinking, well, if he come back, okay, but I didn't want to spook it up. So now it's all foggy. That morning, you couldn't see.
Couldn't see not even 100 yards, I believe it.
Yeah, and I'm looking and I see these fog banks out where these deer had been seen before, and I'm thinking, oh, great, our last day, and we're fogged in. But then the boys come through for us. We got word that they saw my buck.
Right.
Yeah,
the infamous buck. That we said, are you sure you saw that buck?
And, oh yeah, they saw him. They were less than 200 yards from him. He had, I think, 10 does. And so then we had a little discussion, or you and Chad had a little discussion how the quick way to get there. And eventually you guys got over into the right direction. And what'd you guys do? I was down the end of the meadow. I couldn't see.
Well, like you said, it took us a little while to figure out where we were before Chad realized. He thought that he was going in the right direction, and he and I did have a discussion about which is the right direction.
Right.
We did go in his direction, and it wasn't quite right. But at the end of the day, we did end up seeing 2 of the bucks that were with that one big buck. We never did get a chance to see that big buck. We did get to see the 2 other bucks, and we were able to take advantage of one of the bigger bucks in that group. Which was
the buck that we had seen the day before, actually.
Yes.
The one that you saw that had the junk and the mass and everything. So he's what, 175 yards or something away?
175 yards, walking back and forth, had separated a little bit from the does, but soon came back.
And he dropped him with 1 shot.
Yes, and he made an absolutely perfect shot.
And this buck was not one that had ground shrinkage. It was actually getting bigger as we got closer.
Yes.
Mass, it had over 42 inches of mass. I think it had 7 points, scoreable points on one side, 5 on the other. It was over 26 inches. I think it was 26 inches wide. Right. And buck, we found out, scored in the mid 180s. So great strip buck. I mean, big old buck, big old block-headed sucker, and it was a great buck. We took it to the wire, but hey,
And he was tickled with it.
He was tickled with it. Chad was very happy with that buck. I think when we totaled up everything, we saw 45 different bucks on the strip during the hunt. Mm-hmm. That of course, he had passed on most. Well, he had passed on all but one. So it was a great strip hunt, and that's what it is. That's what the strip hunt's all about. Well, folks, that's it for today. I hope you enjoy this exciting strip hunt that we went on. If you ever get a chance, go to the Arizona Strip. I want to thank Jay. Jay, as always. Hey, I couldn't do this without Jay. This guy can find stuff like crazy. So go to the Arizona Strip, look for big giant bucks. Until next week, this is your host, Don Martin, saying keep your firearms oiled, your fishing line fresh, and we'll see you next week back at camp.